Hello, class. This is my week 8 final speech. This is my persuasive speech. This is something that I feel should be a little more important than it has been taken recently. With the research that I have done on this topic, it has come up numerous times in the past, most recently in 1994. This particular topic is uh, whether or not Congress should have term limits. It's something I feel very strongly about, especially today. I'm sure people that were my age a generation or two ago may have thought the same thing and they've tried the same thing. I just feel like there's so much hate and blame being put on the president. Not just Donald Trump, but President Obama as well. For 8 years, I've heard nothing but race this, race that, black guy this, black guy that, white guy, white this, white guy that. And it's kind of getting old. I'm not getting on that subject of race. I'm staying on this subject here of should Congress have term limits? And I feel like they should. I feel like all of this hatred towards the president, like I said, whether that's President Obama or President Trump, the people want to blame that guy. And I get it. I get it. You know, it's like the people want to blame the CEO of a company because he makes all the decisions. You know, and I get that. I really do. But what I don't understand is the CEO kind of just enacts the decisions made by the board. And it's the same concept here. The president is a spokesperson. He's a mouthpiece, if you will. He's a loud horn selling the American brand, the American dream. You know, he's out there selling our country as the best he can. And it doesn't matter if it was Trump or Obama. It really doesn't matter here. What matters here is the president is not somebody who really runs our country. Congress runs our country. Congress are the people that make the rules. Congress are the people that make it hard on the little man like me. Congress, these are the people that we elect. And as soon as they go to Washington, D.C., they completely lose all sense of any kind of respect and loyalty to the constituency that put them there to begin with. Take, for instance, my senator, Joe Manchin III, here in West Virginia. Our state has been completely obliterated by opioid abuse, and this guy takes millions of dollars a year in campaign donations from Merck Pharmaceuticals, which owns the rights to the EpiPen, which jacked the price of the EpiPen from $100 up to $600 so nobody could afford it. My senator, I elected this man. My state is in an opioid crisis. People dying left and right. And yet he still thinks it's okay for him to take money from a pharmaceutical company that sends millions of opioid pills into my state every year. A state the size of West Virginia. We have maybe 1 million people in the state. And in 2014, they sent 9 million pain pills to this state. 9 million. This war on drugs thing, they want to try to let the police lock everybody up, but it ain't working because the politicians, they're the ones that you got to watch out for. So, with that being said, I got a few stats that I'd like to ring off. That was kind of like a very emotional rant more than it was anything else, but I feel it was very important. I don't feel like the president has enough power to help or hurt any one state or any one jurisdiction. And I feel like that the Congress holds all the power, the House and the Senate. Both of them are the same. They're both Congress, and they both work to make our laws, and they both aren't working half of what I have to work. I got to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week to make ends meet. These guys work what, 120 days a year? That ain't work. I'm sorry. And until they learn how to put in an honest day's work, I feel like we need to transfer them out as much as possible. So I just want to throw off a couple things for you. Um, the House is a 2-year term, and you can be elected to as many as you want. The Senate has a 6-year term, and you can be elected to as many as you want, and as many terms as you want. The longest person to ever serve in office is Robert C. Byrd out of the Southern District of West Virginia, 51 years. And you know what? Back when he was younger, he was a leader of a KKK clan here in West Virginia. Can you believe that? That's crazy. Um, that's when you stop and think about that for a minute. That's real crazy. Try not to let that get to me too much, but that is something. I guess people when they're younger they make mistakes, and I feel like they deserve a second chance. But, once you find some things out about a senator that you've looked up to, it's kind of hard pill to swallow there. Some of the pros to a term limited Congress are it prevents any one congressman from amassing too much power. And what I mean by that is if I got everybody working with me to achieve something for my state, then I'm not working for the majority of the people to make the country better. I'm basically using my power and influence to help my state, which is what I was elected to do, but it's also as a broad spectrum kind of deal. You have to do what's right for the people that elected you, but you also have to do what's right for the country as a whole. So it prevents you from amassing too much power and influence by being there for 51 years like Robert C. Byrd. It also prevents you from being alienated from your constituency. And that's huge. That is huge. Because, like I was talking about a minute ago, I elected Joe Manchin because he was a really good governor for this state. And I thought he would go to D.C., and I thought he would be a great senator. And, for the first couple years, I thought he was. But the more I look into his record, he's not that good of a senator, and I'm kind of upset that I wasted my vote on him, and I'm kind of upset that I let him pull the wool over my eyes. As a voter, I allowed him to tell me what I wanted to hear without doing the research. Because of his track record as governor, I just voted for him. And then when he came up for re-election, I voted for him again because of his track record as governor. And that upsets me as a voter. I should have done my homework. I should have made a better attempt at researching him. Another pro to term limited Congress is once you're there for so long, you kind of start losing track. You kind of start thinking that your constituency is going to elect you no matter what. And so you start spending too much time on fundraising for the next election. And you don't spend enough time focusing on the policies that your constituency sent you there to focus on. Like I said, I elected Joe Manchin this past time to focus on the opioid crisis in this state. And he's done nothing but take campaign donations from Merck Pharmaceuticals. Why? Because his daughter is the CEO of this pharmaceutical company. It irritates me. It gets to me so bad how easily bought and corrupted these people are. Let me just keep on going here. Another pro to a term limited Congress is it roots out corruption. I just got done speaking about that. How is your state suffering? People dying, hundreds of people dying every day in these little towns. And nobody's helping. If I'm not mistaken, Donald Trump just made the opioid crisis a national health emergency. Like, this releases millions of dollars of federal funds that should have been released 2 years ago when I voted for you, Joe. You should have made this happen 2 years ago, and you didn't. We could have had this thing taken care of. We could have had help for these drug addicted people. We could have had treatment centers for these people. But no, what do we have? We have grieving parents out here. We have people dying on the street. We have kids with no parents. Yes, it's their choice. Yes, it's a disease. Yes, they made the choice. And yes, now they have to deal with that choice. Unless they're dead, then their family has to deal with the choices they made. This is why I elected you. I elected you to help us from a national stage, because the resources that we have here in West Virginia aren't enough. So I elected you to go to D.C. to help us, and you didn't. Some of the cons that I have found for term limited Congress are, if you're only there for a certain amount of time, then you can only get so good at your job. And to that, I say bull. It doesn't take a scientist. It doesn't take a lawyer. It doesn't take a doctor to write laws that the average, ordinary American can understand. It doesn't need to be that thick to say, put on your seatbelt. It just doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't have to be such legal jargon, such mumbo jumbo. Politics is a nasty business. It really is. You have to stab somebody in the back to get this guy to vote for you. It really is. I understand that. But to say that the people that represent our country aren't skilled enough with the time given to them, I say is unacceptable. I say we as voters need to do the research beforehand and not just let somebody with no experience or no know-how just walk into DC and collect a check and free health benefits for the rest of their life if they don't know what they're doing. Another con to a term limited Congress is if a senator or a representative is doing really well for his constituency and he or she is doing things that his voters asked him to do, then term limits cut him short or her short. And to that I say touche. That is the first valid point that I have read when it comes to term limits on Congress. I get that. If there's no proof of bribes and that senator has voted on every bill that he or she is allowed to vote on, then the voters should be allowed to have that guy run for an additional term. That doesn't mean you shouldn't put term limits on Congress. It means you should put term limits on everybody, and in special situations allow the voters to overturn that. That's all that means. It's just a way for them to establish power and to maintain the power. That's why we have over 300 million people in this country, and we only have 3 political parties. How are people being equally represented there? You're not. It's going to be a very tough situation to get Congress to pass laws that affect themselves. And that is corruption in its title. That is corruption. They're not doing what's right for the American people. They're only doing what affects their paycheck. And that's overall just wrong. It's just wrong. And you'll never get them to do it. They will never pass term limits on themselves. That's sad. So, in closing, I would like to say that this was a very kind of close to home subject because of the crisis that is going on in my state. I see it every day. I can sit on my front porch and see heroin addicts walk up and down the street. And these people are in Washington working 4 hours a day, eating $200 lunches on my dime. And it's unacceptable. And it's time for the American people to take our country back, because Congress is our worst enemy. They are not doing anything to help us. They're just passing law after law after law after law, and half of these laws can't even be enforced. So, as an American person who's tired of my rights being taken away from me, and it's time to stand up. And it's time to vote somebody in who understands where we come from. And until that happens, you will never see change in this country. Until we get people in office that care about me and you, we will never see change in this country. So, thank you, class. It has been a great 8 weeks. Thank you, Instructor Page, for helping me. I'm not 100% sure how much better I became at public speaking. I feel like I'm a better public speaker because of this class, and I want to say thank you. Here's to anybody in my class that's graduating. Congratulations. Anybody close to graduating, keep it up. And I will see you soon.